Song was recently written by you and Craig, her husband Craig. I'd say it fits our theme for the year pretty closely. It's pretty amazing. Today we celebrate St. Patrick's Day and all things Irish. And yeah, we do. Look around and see the green, yep. It's interesting to me that St. Patrick's Day is actually celebrated throughout the world, not in every country, but in quite a few. I was surprised. And there's parades that people have to celebrate it, and of course we had a parade here yesterday. Today at Seattle Center, there's Irish dancing and Irish food, and I believe it also goes on tomorrow. Of course, there's the St. Paddy's Day run that you may have had to maneuver through to get here this morning. In Chicago, it's tradition that the Chicago River is always dyed Kelly green, and my girlfriend was at the parade yesterday, so she had to text me a picture of the Kelly Green River. When I lived in Chicago, it was basically a holiday, and the offices would close early so that you could get to a bar by at least noon that day. So I thought, since St. Patrick's Day happened to fall on a Sunday this year, that it would be appropriate to look at the life of St. Patrick and to look at his life in how he answered the call to be who he was meant to be in this world. And he fully and completely answered it and stepped on that hero's journey. He was born in 389 AD. And he was born in either England or Scotland. There's a discussion about which one. And at the age of 16, he was kidnapped by pirates. And he was hauled off to Ireland as a slave. And while he was in Ireland, it was his job to be in charge of the pigs, and he was also in charge of the crops. And he spent a lot of time outside. And he was very influenced by the pagan religion that was celebrated there. And it was rough for him. I mean, they didn't treat him well. And he had some mystical experiences while he was there. And he spent a lot of time in prayer and a lot of time surrendering himself to God. And he'd pray all night and he'd pray all day. And I think he became a mystic during this period. When he was 22 years old, he had a dream. You know how we've been, looking at how God calls us and God speaks to us through our dreams and our intuition? Well, when he was 22, he had a dream. And in this dream, he saw very clearly how he could escape. And so he follows what he saw in his dream, and basically he had to travel 200 miles. And he saw a ship in his dream, and he got on this ship and he went home. And so it was great. Here he is, he's home, but he had this thirst for God that didn't go away. And so he travels to Gaul, which is later France, and he studies the scriptures. He studies scriptures under Germanus in France. And so he studies for, 15 years about. And then he's like living this life, and he's happy, and then he gets his calling, another calling. And this one, too, comes in the form of a dream. And he has this dream that a man that he knew in Ireland was coming towards him and had all these letters for him. And he'd give him all the letters, and it says, these are from the voices of Ireland. And he opens the letter, and the letter says, we beg you, holy boy, to come back and walk among us. And he says he wakes up from the dream. I'll share with you what he writes. We beg you, holy youth, we beg you, holy youth or holy boy, to come and walk again among us. And I was stung with remorse in my heart, and I could not read on, and I awoke. So you get that this dream that's happening for him is not just something that's happening in his mind, but it gets hid in his heart. He gets hid in his heart that he's supposed to go back to Ireland. Now, why anyone would want to go back to a country that enslaved you, you got to know that there is a higher calling that happens to him. He goes back to Ireland, and he lives there from 432 to 465 when he dies on March 17th. While he is there, he starts 300 churches, and he baptizes over 120,000 people. That's a lot. Now, one of the reasons that he was so successful in his mission was because he was able to combine the pagan religion with Christianity, because he fully understood the pagan religion. For instance, the sun was a key element in the worship of the pagans and the Druids. They used bonfires and fire a lot. They worshiped the sun. And so what he did is he took that symbol of the sun and he put it right in the center of the cross. And hence we have what we call today the Celtic cross. He took the shamrock, which has 3 petals on it, and he explained, this is the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. This is the Trinity. And so he was able to continually combine paganism and Christianity. In fact, he kept the more educated priests, if you will, from England out of Ireland because he knew the people wouldn't like them. And then 400 years after his death, the Pope declared that March 17th would be St. Patrick's Day, a feast day. So we look at St. Patrick, and then I want us to look at, so how does this relate to my life? How is St. Patrick my story as well? And I think if we go back and look at the story, he receives his first call in an unwanted way. And that is that he's kidnapped and he is carried off into slavery. And this is what happens to us when life presents us with a challenge that we didn't choose. You ever felt like you've been kidnapped and carried off somewhere into slavery? And it comes from those moments that are unexpected, from those life events that are unexpected, from those tragedies, from those losses, from illness. And when we have that kind of loss, in a sense, it's a calling. Now, the truth is that the calling may not be evident for quite a long time until after that event. Just as with St. Patrick, when he's carried off into slavery, he doesn't know that his calling is to be in Ireland until, what, 40 years later, 30 years later? Does he see the grand plan? Does he see the design? Does he see the whole pattern? Just as we can't see when we experience an extreme event, a traumatic event, we can't necessarily see what is a call in that. It was tragedy and loss that caused me to ask questions and seek answers at a very deep level at a young age. I have always loved God and loved church, and it was always fun for me. I loved singing. I liked chanting. I liked going to the Baha'i temple. I liked yoga. I liked astrology. It was fun for me. I loved it. I loved the way it made me feel. It was kind of a high. Religion, worship, God, all of it was kind of a high for me. It was fun. And I won't say that it was superficial, but I'll say that it felt good. And it wasn't until I experienced a tragedy in my life, until I experienced a loss, that all of a sudden, it wasn't just fun. It wasn't about feeling good. It was about, wait a minute, what happens to us after we die? Wait a minute, what are the answers to some of these big questions of life? And it catapulted me into seeking those answers, just as it does each one of us. It's like, it's no longer theory. It's no longer, this is interesting. It's like, this is real. This is real. So sometimes we receive that first calling, and it's not chosen. It's not anything we would have chosen. Now, when we cross the threshold into unknown territory, the truth is we have to let go. Now, St. Patrick let go and he surrendered. He did not want to be in slavery. He did not want to be taking care of these pigs. He did not want to be out in the fields away from his family. But he surrendered. He surrenders over and over again. And that's something that I didn't know about St. Patrick. And that is his humility. That is his ability to surrender constantly to Spirit. I see a lot of St. Francis, a lot of similarities between the two of them. And the truth is that we are called to let go so that we can be who we are really called to be, which is the I am that I am, the Spirit of God that expresses through us. Life is change. Now, we like to pretend that it isn't change, but the truth is the only constant in life is change. We know things are going to change. And we build structure, we build systems around us And in some ways, when we build our structure and our systems and our habits and our routines, we can fool ourselves into thinking, life's not really changing. I mean, I'm kind of keeping things the same. But the truth is, it is constantly changing. And we need that structure. We need that routine. We need all of it so that we can grow and thrive. But eventually, we need to let go of it and create new structures and new ways of being. My daughter was in town earlier this week, and my stepdaughter's birthday was also this week, so we went out to dinner on Friday. And I asked my stepdaughter, so how old are you now? And she said, I'm 35. I'm like, you're 35? You know, and she's going to have a baby any day. And my daughter is 22, and I'm just like, where did those years go? How did that happen? You know, my little kids, the little babies, and all of a sudden they're these people that are almost 40, or at least my stepdaughter is. And I just think, how is that? That is just, it's changing. And the way that I was a mother to them before, I can't be a mother like that now. I have to be somebody different. Scott Peck said it this way. He said that we have a map of life, and we walk around with our maps, and it kind of shows us what's going on and, you know, what our role is and how we're supposed to be. But as life changes, life is changing, and sometimes we don't update our maps. And so we're walking around with an old map from, like, you know, 1982 or the 60s, or going, hey, it doesn't match. I can't find my way around. And he says we're constantly being called to rip up the map and write another one. And so I see that, like, when I'm with my kids. It's like, okay, I got to be somebody different, because who I was isn't going to work anymore. And it's true with parenthood, whether your kids are in kindergarten or, you know, 14 or 20. It's like as soon as you get used to them being a certain way, they change and they're different, and then they keep changing, and you have to keep up with them, and it's great. It's wonderful. And the truth is, we do need that structure. We do need that form in order for us to feel comfortable and to grow and to be with that. And my daughter got a puppy on last Monday. And what I noticed about the puppy is that when we first brought it home, it would sit by her feet and it wouldn't move, and it would cry a little bit, but not move. And then the more comfortable the puppy got with the space, the more it started to branch out. The more obnoxious it started to become. By yesterday, when they left, the puppy was all over the place and acted like she owned the place. And you know, the truth is, we're kind of like that. We get in our structure, we get in our place, and we kind of like start pushing out. We maybe get a little obnoxious, and it's time to go find something new, you know? Go find new territory. So letting go is a part of life. And when we answer the call, we may ask, what do I need to let go of? Well, we need to let go of habits that no longer serve us. We're always needing to let go of possessions. I mean, that's a constant. We're always needing to let go of our possessions. We need to let go of our attitudes, and we need to let go of resentment and unforgiveness. St. Patrick had to forgive his enemies before he could answer the call to go back to Ireland. I never thought I'd quote Ann Landers, but Ann Landers said, holding on to your resentment is like someone you despise live rent-free in your house, in your head, sorry. Holding on to your resentment is like letting someone you despise live rent-free in your head, right? You know, it's just like they're always there, and it's like, no, no, no. And that's a big thing. Forgiveness is a big thing. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. And what I have found for forgiveness work is I have learned through, it was actually through Hypatia Hasbrook in her book, The Handbook of Positive Prayer. She has a little prayer in there, and basically what it's about is asking the Spirit of God in me to forgive the Spirit of God in someone else that I need to forgive. And what it does is it takes me off the hook, because I don't have to stand up there and go, okay, I'm going to forgive you now, you know, I'm all right, I'm forgiving you. Rather, I can't do it of my own. But I can invite the Spirit of God in me to forgive the Spirit of God in you. And when we do our Maundy Thursday service, Maundy means commandments. And the whole service is about keeping the commandment of love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. And that service is geared toward releasing and letting go and forgiving, and then calling in the will of Spirit. And so we're going to do that exercise during the Maundy Thursday service. We're going to change it up a little bit to make forgiveness more active. So once we release and let go, we can surrender to what lies next. We are humble, as St. Patrick is. We surrender our egos so that something greater that's within us can come through into manifestation and into form. Now, again, St. Patrick had this down. He was a master at surrender. He was a master at humbleness. And on the front of your bulletin, I actually put one of his prayers. And I would like for us to recite this together. And what you'll notice in this is that he's giving it all over. He's giving his entire being over. But what's also interesting about this prayer is you can see that he's combining earth worship, paganism, with Christianity. He's combining it beautifully. So just be in that place of openness, of humbleness, of surrendering the ego. And we begin with the part that says, I arise today. I arise today through the strength of heaven, the light of sun, brilliance of moon, splendor of fire, speed of lightning, swiftness of wind, depth of sea, stability of earth, firmness of rock. I arise today through God's strength to pilot me, God's might to uphold me, God's wisdom to guide me, God's eye to look before me, God's ear to hear me, God's word to speak to me, God's hand to guard me, God's way to lie before me, God's host to secure me, Christ beside me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ within me, Christ beneath me, Christ above me. Is that a beautiful prayer? That is a beautiful prayer, and may we use that throughout this week. St. Patrick received his second calling, and God calls him in a dream to return to Ireland, and it's because he's proficient in letting go. It's because he knows how to let go that he answers this call without question. He is willing to let go of his home. He's willing to let go of his family once again so that he can step into who he is meant to be. So today we celebrate St. Patty, and we celebrate all things Irish. And so as you are eating Irish food or having a couple of beers or eating green food or whatever it may be, may we also remember the lesson of St. Patrick. And that is, we see the example of him in his life, that he answered the call to who he was meant to be. And sometimes the call comes unbidden and in a way that we wouldn't choose. And my prayer, if that is where you are right now, that call, that answer may be revealed to you. Life is change. It's the only thing that we know for sure. And we can build our structures, we can build our foundations, but they're going to need to change and come down at some point. It's time for the letting go so that something greater can manifest, so that something greater can come through. It's the I am that I am, the truth of who you are truly called to be. Amen.